I'd spoken about the reparation project for the parish. The plan I had that all of us would work more and more to understand more about the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the love of Mary's heart for us, and then through reading various things too, to learn to love what Mary loves, and in that way also to show a disdain, a hatred, turning away from those sins to what Mary herself hates, so we to ourselves turn away from them as well. The Reparation Project had mainly as its end the purpose of getting us ready for the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which was last Monday, and on that particular feast day to gather together at Mass and to offer our prayers of reparation to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and then at the end of Mass to renew our love and consecration to our Blessed Mother following the prayer that Pope Pius XII had composed and wanted recited on that feast day. And that we did. But just a few people coming for Mass and offering some prayers and things of that particular nature. While they do it with love in their hearts and reparation is being made there, still, the idea of offering prayers just on that one day, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, for reparation, is not enough. The idea of this reparation project, just to keep the thoughts in mind, continues all the way through the month of August. So that we get it into our minds the idea of making reparation, not just on the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, but they're prepared to pray these prayers and have this spirit every day. Again, the spirit of reparation is a spirit of love. It means that I love God so much, I love our Blessed Mother so much, that the sins that I have committed against God, against Mary, they are great or small, whatever they be. Whatever they are, they're still sins. They're offenses. I've taken my love for God that I should have and turned it into a selfish love. A love for myself, my own sinful pleasures that go along with it. In some ways not care. But then by the grace of God, when I find that I should make changes in my life and start to live for Him in every way, then that love that's in my heart says, I've got to repair the damage that I've caused to the one I should have loved all this time. That's what love does. It helps us to remind us of those things, and that's what the spirit of reparation is all about. The spirit of reparation takes place all the time, every day, throughout the entire year, not just on the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. If you pray the morning offering and follow the one that is most commonly used, that's been around since the 1940s, you'll find in that the opening line, the opening words of the morning offering, is that we dedicate our entire day united with the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass for the prayers of others throughout the world, for intentions that they have of God, but also to make reparation for the offenses against the hearts of Jesus and Mary. This notion, this concept of reparation is there to be daily. If we have this spirit of reparation, if it's something that takes over our life and saying, I'm sorry, God, I am deeply touched, Mary, of what my sins and the sins of the world have done to thee. I'm going to prove my love in every way. Prove it by having prayers and sacrifices, proving that I truly do love. If you've got this, if this is the spirit that guides and guards our hearts every day, then when temptations come along, temptations that will take us, especially in areas of mortal sin, away from God, we're going to have a battle here. The battle is going to be, I love God so much that I will not fall into sin. Why repair the damage done to God for sins that I've committed, and then go ahead and keep sinning afterwards? The spirit of reparation is something that has to carry us through more and more, day by day, so that we can be strong under every circumstance that takes place. If we're faithful in that way. Not going to say we'll never sin. That's not going to happen. But when the temptations come, we will struggle against them better. We'll have second thoughts about being so selfish and sin, and rather be selfless and love God and our Blessed Mother and our own eternal salvation more and more in every way. During the apparitions of 1917, when Our Lady spoke to the children of Fatima and gave them message of Fatima, among which the message of the Immaculate Heart, at one point she told Lucia, the oldest of the three children, that she was to remain on earth to help establish devotion to her Immaculate Heart. The other two younger ones, Jacinta and Francisco, died after a period of time, after several years. Our Lady had said about Francisco that he would go to heaven, but only after he had said on this earth many rosaries before he died, because he was being a boy and not living as he should. Francisco did change after that, prayed those rosaries, and died in a holy way. Anyway, Lucia was given that message. Her job, her role, while she remained on this earth, was to help to establish this devotion to Immaculate Heart of Mary, to help men, Catholics particularly, to understand this is what her Son wants in the world in our time, to grow, to love her in her Immaculate Heart, and to make reparation to it. A few months later, after she had said that there, the children were in front of Mary at another time of the apparitions, and they saw her heart, much like you see the heart that's on the statue of Our Lady of Fatima behind me. And as they saw that heart, they saw it was surrounded by thorns. And they understood by that this heart of Mary was pierced by the sins of men. And she desired, she wanted reparation to be made to her Immaculate Heart for the sins of men, and especially for the sins of those who say they are her children, but don't seem to care. And that became the devotion, the message that Lucia spread more and more, even as she was in the convent. In fact, when she was in the convent in the year 1925, Our Lady appeared to her and told her that of this work of reparation to her Immaculate Heart of Mary, she wanted special days dedicated so that people would always be reminded of practicing this spirit of reparation and even come together in this spirit of reparation and honor and love her in that way. She gave to Lucia the message of the 5 first Saturdays and the great promise that is attached to the observant of the 5 first Saturdays. That the whole spirit of these 5 first Saturdays is to make reparation to Mary's Immaculate Heart on the first Saturday of every month. But the great promise that comes to it is those who come on 5 consecutive Saturdays and honor Mary, fulfill certain obligations, and she has a great promise for them. Let me read to you what she said to Lucia. I promise to assist at the hour of death with the graces necessary for salvation all those who on the first Saturdays of 5 consecutive months do the following things. Now let's look at this great promise that Mary is making. She is saying that I will be with them at the moment of our death with all the graces they need for salvation. She will fight for us against the power of the devil, who is there at that one last instant to take people away. I can't tell you how many times that I've been at the deathbed of people and have watched the struggle go on. The struggle that takes place between the devil and the soul of that person. Because the devil knows he has only just a short amount of time right now to capture that person for eternity. It is possible someone to lead a good life all their life and in the end lose it because they have gained, or rather given in, to temptation and to sin at the end. The devil has them at that last moment before they die. It is possible to do that. We have a weakness of human nature about us that anything can take place with that. Knowing that, then, why would we not be involved or take part in a devotion like this of the 5 first Saturdays? With this great promise, she will assist at the hour of death all those who have fulfilled this request of hers, who have this reparation spirit in their heart, and for these 5 first Saturdays, take care of these particular things to show that. This great promise that comes for such little that we do on this life. Mary will be our protector. It's so much like the promises of the 9 first Fridays, what Jesus in his Sacred Heart promises to those who keep the 9 first Fridays. Among them, the one specifically I'm thinking of right now, is that the promise is there that they will not die without the sacraments. Jesus promises, and again, I can't tell you how many times I've called to some nursing home or something like that, down to a hospital, over the years. People who are dying, there's no priest that will come to them, but they're asking for a priest, and they'll know if they call, if something hasn't happened here, I will go and assist them. And getting there, and most of the time when I'm able to talk to them, I ask them, did you ever make the 9 first Fridays in your life? They go, oh yes, Father, I did. A living proof of what God's promise is. You keep these 9 consecutive first Fridays. Doesn't mean go ahead and lead a life of sin afterwards. But if you do this and fulfill these requirements, in the end, he says, you will not die without the sacraments. And Our Lady is saying, even if you have the sacraments from what her Son will provide, she is saying, I will be there to assist you that even after you receive those sacraments, I will be there to assist you with grace to keep you strong, because this is the devil's final hour in our lives would take place. Wonderful promises for us in every way. People who have made the 9 First Fridays or the 5 First Saturdays know the struggle it can be to fulfill them. The promises are great, but it's a lot of work to do it. And think, oh, it's just 9 Fridays in a row in months. First 2 or 3 go real easy. Then by the 6th or the 7th one, it's really a struggle. It's almost seeming like some obstacle will come up around the 8th or the 9th, the First Fridays. Because we know if we don't fulfill it, we've got to start all over again, because it has to be consecutive Fridays, consecutive months. Start all this thing all over again. The same it is with the 5 First Saturdays. It's the same thing. Ah, it's 5. It's less than 9. I can do that. You see, the struggle that comes to fulfill what it is Our Lady asks. And let's see what she asks here. Let me tell you about that, because that's important. In order to gain the graces that she says, to be one who is a recipient of this great promise, here's what you and I need to do on 5 consecutive First Saturdays. Number 1, to confess our sins. That's easy. Okay, I can do that. Go to confession. 8 days before, 8 days after. Okay, I can do that. Secondly, to receive Holy Communion. Well, I'll be at Mass anyway. Sure, I can do that. That's fine. Nothing hard yet so far, Father. Third, recite a part of the Rosary. Our Lady here means by the Rosary the 15 decades. So to recite 5 decades of the Rosary. Okay, I can do that. I'm going to do that anyway. They pray the Rosary before Mass. I can be there. Okay. Nothing difficult yet here so far, until we get to the 4th and the 5th ones. And these things are essential requirements in order for the great promise, the 5 First Saturdays, to take effect. The 4th one is, keep me company for 15 minutes by meditating on the mysteries of the Rosary. Keep me company. If you had a great friend that you were visiting, keeping company, with someone who was sick and you'd rather keep them company, you would sit by their side, you would talk to them, you would keep your mind focused on what it is that you're saying. 15 minutes would quickly turn to half an hour or more, if you had a spirit of love while you were doing that, to keep someone company. Those who are friends with each other know what it's like to keep company. Those who are courting as a boyfriend-girlfriend, they understand this idea of keeping company. 15 minutes can pass by real quickly. We're supposed to have a love for Mary to the point that we will keep her company for 15 minutes by reflecting on the mysteries of the Rosary. So many people, when they come to pray the Rosary on First Saturday, are so distracted in what they pray. They figure, okay, I've made it through the 5 decades, but I haven't meditated on the mysteries of the Rosary for a 15-minute time span, keeping Mary company. You don't do that, you have not fulfilled what you need to have for the 5 First Saturdays. And here's number 5, and this is usually where people fail. All of these things that we're to do here, confession, receiving Holy Communion, reciting the Rosary, keeping Mary company for 15 minutes. We're supposed to do all of these works in a spirit of reparation to her Immaculate Heart. If we do it just because I've got to go there, for First Saturday, I'm going to go to confession because I want to fulfill First Saturday things, but I don't do it in reparation to Mary's Immaculate Heart, I'm just going so I can do 5 in a row, and I've been there 5 in a row and had it done, then you haven't made your 5 First Saturdays. I don't care what you think you've done, you haven't done it. Because you have not fulfilled all the requirements Mary has asked. That spirit of reparation, keeping her company for 15 minutes, is usually where everyone fails. You might consider that. Those who have been trying to be conscientious in fulfilling the 9 First Fridays and the 5 First Saturdays, go back and think, did I fulfill all the requirements that Jesus and Mary ask of me? Or to just make it just 9 days, 5 days, and then I'm glad that's done, don't do any more for the rest of my life, off I can go. It's not like that. The 5 First Saturdays, the 9 First Fridays, they're not lucky charms. They're not something given us by God that if you just do a certain few prayers, then guaranteed at the end all things that happen, I can kind of live my life the way I am. I want to do. No. If I'm going to dedicate my life to the point of the 9 First Fridays and the 5 First Saturdays, then that means I'm going to continue in the spirit of love and reparation to Mary's Immaculate Heart. Even afterwards, I will keep the first Saturdays of the month in a spirit of reparation in all I do. Even though it's right that I should be able to do this every day. So few people fulfill what Our Lady asks in this request for the 5 First Saturdays, simply because they set aside the other things as being unimportant, or saying, I can't do them, I don't want to do them. Whatever be the reason, go back and reflect and think on those things. Last Sunday, we reviewed the words of Our Lady at Marienfried from Germany. An obscure apparition, approved, it's approved, but obscure. Obscure in this sense, it doesn't have all the same favor as Fatima and Lourdes and maybe even Bereng and Bonneau. Obscure probably perhaps because the message of love and dedication to our Blessed Mother is the only thing attached to Marienfried. No special works or miracles have taken place, no signs in the sky, no fountains bubbling up from the ground. None of those things took place at Marienfried. The only thing that was given over a period of 3 months is the message that's in the pamphlet in the back of the church. A powerful and important message for our time. But so many people skip over it because it's not an important devotion. It's not an important message. It is. It's not important just because I put it in the back. It is. Because of the words of the message and something we have to reflect upon more and more in our lives. Anyway, going back to one thing that she mentions in there comes to play here. In the course of this, she tries to help us to understand the absolute importance of devotion to her Immaculate Heart in our time. And she says, keep the Saturdays that have been dedicated to me as I requested. One simple sentence in the midst of that entire message. She again asks, 21 years after she's told Sister Lucia about these 5 First Saturdays in devotion, she comes back and tells those at Marienfried to pass it on to the rest. Keep these Saturdays as I have requested. I requested them. If you love me, keep them. It's amazing that she found it necessary for us to and remind us of these things. At all of her other apparitions, she reminds us to pray the Rosary, as at Marienfried. Marienfried is particularly the apparition of the devotion to the Immaculate Heart, the summary of all the things the children have learned from Fatima, as found in Marienfried. But she reminds us about that 1925 apparition to Sister Lucia. I asked for these Saturdays to be fulfilled. I asked for this. Keep them. If you love me, do this. And then I promise you great works, great graces that will help you, especially at the moment of your death. Important considerations for all of us here to demonstrate quite clearly the devotion to Mary's Immaculate Heart is a devotion for our time. God sends his mother to tell us that God himself wants this devotion established. And not just a devotion to Mary and her Immaculate Heart with a few prayers, but a spirit of reparation to that Immaculate Heart. So we will learn to love better, be selfless in our love, not selfish people, because we live in a time when selfishness is rampant. And we can easily fall quickly into that and serve ourselves rather than God. So officially, this reparation project that I've worked on for the month of August ends in a few days. But in practice, it should never end. In practice, all of us need to work on the spirit of reparation. Keep the 5 First Saturdays. Even if you've done them already, continue to do so. Prove love for Mary. Prove love in the request there. She requests, for this point of making reparation to her Immaculate Heart, a simple request, a selfless act. Make the time. Keep the 5 First Saturdays. Come for Mass, receive communion, go to confession, receive Holy Communion, or rather, pray the Rosary. Pray it by keeping her company with the 15 mysteries, and do it all in a spirit of reparation. Make this something that First Saturdays are important. I will pretty much guarantee you that few people who have heard these entire messages, 5 First Fridays, the 9 First Fridays and 5 First Saturdays, few among Catholics will keep it. They don't see it's necessary. Father, is it part of things I need to do to save my soul? It's not in the catechism, you know. Since it's not in the catechism, then it's not that important. Not everything we need to grow in our spiritual lives and to protect us spiritually is found in the catechism. The works of the rosary and some other things like that. The wearing of the brown scapular. They may find themselves a little bit in devotional parts of the catechism. But strictly necessary for our salvation? No. But if we're people that only live by what is strictly necessary, we're in terrible trouble. We really are. We're willing to let ourselves push the envelope in life and just keeping by only what is necessary. Venial sin is only a venial sin. As long as you don't commit a mortal sin, not that bad. It's only a venial sin. But it's still an offense against God, but it's only a venial sin, Father. That's a terrible state of mind to be in. If people, married couples, if in living together, the only thing they did was remain faithful to each other, they had the spirit of fidelity in their lives and showed that love for each other. That's the only thing they did. That should be enough to keep their whole marriage together in loving spirit all the time through all the trials and difficulties that are there. Any married couple will tell you that's not true. Just fidelity to one another, which is the absolute bare essential to married life, is not enough. It takes great work of self-sacrifice. It takes so many other things to accomplish it. Things that are not in the book that says this is what is absolutely necessary for marriage to be done. Proof for love has to come up. An inventive proof that continues over and over and over in every way. Not selfish, but selfless. No spirit of independence, but a spirit of love and gratitude all the time. That's what helps to make up a good marriage. Well, using that analogy in our life for God, if it's just only when we do what is essential, which means what? Go to Mass on Sundays, keep myself away from mortal sin, go to confession, do these, and that's it. That's all I do. You're not proving your love for God. When the trials and difficulties come along for the strength of soul that is needed, more often than not, people fall. They lose, there's a blindness in their hearts and souls. There's a selfishness that comes up. Charity gets choked out. But Father, I'm doing what I need to do, but we're not doing enough. We're unprofitable servants, it says in the Scriptures, if we only do the bare minimum and don't love and serve God as we should. That's what this whole spirit of reparation is all about. Again, I recognize a greater majority of people will just blow this whole thing off about reparation, that it's not important in their lives. The greater majority of them will be that way. My prayer is that minority, the elect, are found here in this parish. That amongst us, personally, as a family, and as a parish, we understand and we practice the spirit of reparation. So at least here, Almighty God and His Holy Mother can find an oasis of love and dedication and prayer. And we keep that by keeping the spirit of reparation each and every day. If you don't understand it by now about this whole spirit of reparation, pray. Pray that you do. Because this is what's going to help as the darker times continue to come more and more around us, as we have to live in a very selfish and sin-laden world. The graces will come to us if we prove that we love. If we prove it in every way by making reparation for sin. God will assist us all in grace if on our part we prove this love. Let's work toward that end. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.